Imagine the stage lights dimming, the steel guitar humming its last soft note, and an audience holding its breath while the singer steps into darkness forever. Country music has more than its share of tales like that. Stories where promise flashes bright, then dies fast, leaving only rumors and records behind. Some say the genre feeds on heartbreak. Others believe the industry races its best horses until they collapse. Whatever the cause, the legends who vanish early leave echoes that feel louder than applause. Today we are venturing into a ghost-lit hall of fame, tracing 10 voices that once filled honky-tonks and airwaves before fate slammed the studio door. Their endings are sudden, their legacies eternal, and their warnings ring. Our first tale begins high above a frozen Midwestern night, where a chartered Beechcraft Bonanza droned through sleet and static on February 3, 1959. Inside sat Buddy Holly, 22, already a rockabilly architect, whose country twang smuggled itself into every chorus he wrote. He booked that flight after a grueling tour, hoping to reach the next venue in time to launder stage clothes and maybe grab a bed that didn't move on wheels. The weather was foul, the pilot inexperienced with instruments, and somewhere after takeoff the little craft tilted into a death spiral. When the wreckage smoldered in an Iowa cornfield, newsmen called it the day the music died, and they were only half exaggerating. Someone unearthed Buddy's glasses in the snow almost a decade later, unscratched, as if the singer had stepped away to tune his guitar and might return if the wind quieted down. That preservation fueled theories that sabotage, not weather, downed the plane. Gunfire, they muttered, or a jealous rival. Nothing ever proved the whispers, yet the mystery clung to every vinyl groove he left behind. Fate, apparently pleased with irony, decided one echo was not enough.
All my life I've been waiting, and I there'll be no hesitating.
Enter David Box, barely 21, a lanky Texan who slipped into Holly's old band, the Crickets, singing the same hiccuping phrasing that made Buddy famous. Box boarded a Cessna almost identical to the doomed Bonanza, bound for a hometown gig in 1964. Minutes after takeoff, the instruments failed, the gauge lied about fuel, and the engine coughed into black silence. Witnesses said the craft clipped a tree line, cartwheeled, and scattered sheet metal across a pasture. Box and everyone aboard perished on the spot. 2 singers, 1 set of songs, 2 planes. Copy and paste destiny if you like black humor. Old-timers in Lubbock swear they sometimes hear twin voices bending the same note when the wind crosses open farmland on clear nights just right. Proof, they say, that neither pilot lost the radio entirely. The sky simply decided to keep their last request on permanent rotation for all time.
I don't say that it's true, I'll just leave that up to you.
Not every tragedy crashes under open stars. Some swirl inside thick clouds where only an instrument panel separates confidence from catastrophe. Patsy Cline understood those clouds. A powerhouse vocalist who bridged Nashville and Las Vegas with a single velvet note, she boarded a Piper Comanche on March 5th, 1963 after a benefit show for a friend's family. Storms stacked over Tennessee, yet the pilot pressed on, trusting sight more than gauges. Before leaving, Patsy confided to fellow singer Dottie West that she felt a heavy sense of finality, even a calm. Her wristwatch, later found in the wreckage, had frozen at 6:20. Fans read that pause like a secret last beat, proof the singer foretold her doom. The crash that followed killed everyone aboard and etched her forever at 30. Cline's cross-genre success seemed unstoppable. In death, it became mythic, inspiring generations of performers who measured ballads against the ache she left behind.
I've got your picture that you...
Just 16 months later, a second smooth baritone tried to steer his own fate through a thunder cell. Jim Reeves, gentleman crooner of He'll Have to Go, piloted a single-engine Beechcraft with business partner Dean Manuel riding shotgun. They encountered brutal turbulence over Brentwood, the altimeter spinning lies while rain hammered the windshield. Investigators ruled spatial disorientation, yet old studio hands whisper Reeves was hauling a suitcase stuffed with unreleased demos, terrified someone might leak them if he shipped by mail. His urgency met the storm, and the storm won. Search crews took 2 days to cut through cedar and find the mangled plane. Inside lay tapes miraculously intact, a cruel joke, or maybe an encore. Posthumous singles poured onto radio for years, calming truck stop audiences who requested "Welcome to My World." Listeners swore they heard hiss behind the vocals, as though seawater than raindrops had kissed the reels. Cline and Reeves never shared a headline alive, yet in death they became duet partners in cautionary folklore, proving that stardom cannot outsing gravity and talent offers no shelter when thunder starts tapping on the cabin roof.
Let's pretend that we're together all alone.
Spotlights do not always fall from the sky. Sometimes they flicker out on lonely asphalt between dance halls and bigger dreams. Joe Carson was 27, a Beaumont native whose fiddle-laced honky-tonk singles had just cracked national charts. He spent 1964 chasing radio programmers across Texas, delivering acetate copies from the trunk of a battered sedan. Witnesses remember him laughing of buying his mother a brick house once royalties rolled in. On March 1st, he left a club outside Nacogdoches after midnight, rain pooling in road ruts along wet shoulders. Carson's driver misjudged a curve. The car skidded, slammed a culvert, and flipped into a field. Joe was hurled against the dashboard. The steering column did the rest. Paramedics arrived fast, but bones and dreams were already splintered. Nashville mourned politely, then quickly filled the calendar slot he would have taken on the Opry. Only old jukeboxes remember his promise now, spinning scuffed singles where his voice fights static for space.
Their rocket ship in Nashville, Tennessee. There sure were lots of other.
Johnny Horton, 10 years older, knew highways better. He built folklore-style ballads like the Battle of New Orleans, yet his legends felt spookier. Friends swear he predicted a death every time he finished whiskey, muttering that a drunk would end him. On November 5, 1960, minutes after playing at the Skyline Club, Horton climbed into a Cadillac with 2 bandmates. Fog hugged Highway 79 as they approached Milano, and headlights suddenly bloomed in the wrong lane. A drunk driver barreled head-on into the car, pinning Horton beneath the dashboard. His bass player lived long enough to hear him whisper a prayer and the words, "I knew it." In Horton's pocket, police found a newspaper clipping about Hank Williams' demise, folded to fit like a talisman. Some called it superstition, others saw prophecy. Within hours, radio stations paired Hank's funeral hymns with Horton's battle cries, turning tragedy into a medley nobody requested. 2 road warriors, 2 wrecks, 1 caution sign flickering where country lanes meet fate, reminding touring musicians that applause isn't the only thing waiting after the encore.
We took a little trip along the Colonel Texas down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little vacation.
Before Horton clipped that article, its subject had already become the patron saint of lonesome endings. Hank Williams, 29, crawled into the back seat of a blue Cadillac on New Year's Eve 1952, determined to reach a New Year's Day gig in Canton, Ohio, despite searing pain. College student Charles Carr took the wheel while sleet rattled the windows. Hank's frame, battered by pills, booze, and untreated back trouble, pleaded for relief. A Knoxville doctor reportedly answered with a morphine-laced vitamin shot and potent sedatives. Carr draped a coat over the singer, pointed north, and later swore. Hank muttered new lyrics into the dark, rehearsing a melody nobody has since located. Snow thickened as the Cadillac slipped through towns where neon motel signs blinked like miniature marquees. In Oak Hill, West Virginia, Carr stopped for fuel and tried waking his passenger. Hank's head sagged, eyes half open, skin pale as birch. A physician confirmed the worst, leaving the exact moment of death somewhere along Highway 19. Because no one can mark the mile, the whole route feels haunted, a rolling tombstone for country's greatest poet. Stories insist cash vanished from Hank's wallet, that the injection was stronger than legal, or that Carr drove miles with a body because canceling meant forfeited pay. Biographers swap these rumors like guitar picks, yet the autopsy blamed heart failure worsened by chloral hydrate and alcohol. Weeks later, investigators found a note in the Cadillac's glove box reading, "God ride with me tonight." Scholars doubt its origin, but the sentiment still rings unmistakably Hank. The funeral procession looked presidential. 25,000 mourners filed past his coffin in Montgomery, while thousands more stood outside. His mother fainted twice. Rival singers clutched notebook scraps they claimed were Hank's final ideas. Radio spun "I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive" on loop, a cosmic joke nobody dared write on purpose. Every New Year's Day, fans gather at his grave beside frosted magnolias to sing that song, daring the cold to still their voices, knowing Hanks never did.
So we can go steady, no how about saving all.
Fast forward 3 decades and Nashville faced a different kind of shadow when Keith Whitley failed to answer his phone on the morning of May 9, 1989. Whitley's voice carried Appalachian sorrow better than anyone since Hank, a plaintive cry that made radio sound like late-night porch confession. Friends joked he could sing the phone book and break hearts on page 1, yet he feared those same emotions applied pressure ordinary liquor could not mute. He spent the prior night with songwriter Mickey Allen discussing tour plans and sipping vodka from an oversized tumbler. By dawn, the bottle lay empty. Fiancée Lori Morgan called repeatedly but heard only rings echoing through their Goodlettsville home. A bandmate entered, found Whitley on the bedroom floor, and dialed paramedics who recorded a blood alcohol content of 0.47, nearly 5 times the legal limit. Medical examiners wrote acute ethanol toxicity, a phrase clinical enough to ignore the lonely math behind that final pour. Rumors spread. Whitley was despondent over postponed dates, label frustration, or a throat infection threatening future notes. None were proven, but country gossip never waits for confirmations. Within hours, radio pivoted from celebrating his hit, "I'm No Stranger to the Rain," to eulogizing the man who wrote it. Disc jockeys replayed the track with demo tapes where he joked about outliving himself if he ever sobered up. Those recordings haunt comment sections where new fans wonder how someone could drink past despair into silence. In 2022, the Country Music Hall of Fame finally inducted Whitley. During the ceremony, Morgan placed a white rose atop a mic stand and whispered, "He finally made it." The crowd stood in an ovation that felt less like applause and more like shared repentance. Some say Whitley's tenor floated above the pedal steel, reminding listeners that hearts can break twice when joy mixes with overdue recognition. His brief career now stands as both cautionary tale and perpetual altar where admirers leave bottles they promise never to open. The lesson tastes bitter, yet endures today.
The smile on your face lets me know that you need.
Desert air, on the other hand, keeps secrets differently. Graham Parsons found that out in September 1973 when he checked into room 8 of the Joshua Tree Inn with a guitar, an entourage, and a suitcase full of reckless curiosity. Known as the father of country rock, Parsons spent his short career convincing long-haired rockers to love pedal steel and teaching Nashville purists to tolerate hippie poetry. He felt caught between worlds and tried to stitch them together with silk scarves, rhinestone suits, and cosmic melodies. Friends said he also chased a permanent high because ordinary stage lights no longer impressed him. On the 13th, he mixed gin, barbiturates, and coke until his breathing slowed to a whisper. By the time assistant Margaret Fisher realized the danger, the motel's remote location left paramedics an hour away. Parsons died in that room at 26, but the real circus began afterward. Before his death, he told road manager Phil Kaufman that he wanted his ashes scattered in the desert, no chapel, no marble. Kaufman, fearing the family would ignore that wish, stole the coffin from Los Angeles International Airport, drove it back to Joshua Tree, doused it with 5 gallons of gasoline, and lit a match beneath Cap Rock. Police caught him days later. The cremation half-worked, leaving authorities with a partially burned casket and a folktale hotter than the sun-bleached boulders nearby. Kaufman landed a $200 fine for stealing a casket, then hosted a keg party to pay the fee. Parsons' remaining remains were eventually buried in Louisiana, but devotees still hiked to Cap Rock to leave guitar picks, flowers, and empty pint bottles, believing some ash clings to wind-carved crevices. At sunset, coyotes howl across the flats, and visitors swear those howls pitch up into a chorus echoing hickory wind. Parsons wanted a cosmic American burial, and he apparently received two, one improvised by friends, another conducted by strangers who never met him yet, sing along whenever the desert air bends sound like mirage glass. On anniversaries, meteors streak overhead. Long before any of these stories unfolded, a rail-thin former brakeman from Mississippi proved that even tuberculosis couldn't muffle a determined yodel. Jimmie Rodgers, the singing brakeman, cut his first records in 1927 and changed American music overnight. He was 33 when doctors warned he had little time left. Instead of retreating, he toured harder, coughing between verses yet charming crowds with easy smiles and winked asides. By 1933, the disease ravaged his lungs, but Rodgers booked one last New York session, convinced he could outrun death long enough to finish 12 songs. Studio staff erected a cot beside the microphone so he could rest between takes. Witnesses described him propped on pillows, pallid yet beaming whenever the red light blinked on. He nailed years ago, collapsed, sipped lemonade, then whispered, "Let's try another." After every master, the engineers cheered like ball players who'd seen a grand slam. When Song 12 finally settled onto acetate, Rodgers signed autographs for the crew, tipped his hat, and headed to his hotel. 2 days later, he was gone. The final batch of records hit shelves after his funeral, and skeptics predicted pity sales. Instead, the sides roared up charts, their fragile vibrato somehow stronger, knowing it wrestled the reaper to a draw. In the decades since, artists from Hank to Dolly have borrowed Rodgers' bluesy uplift, but few attempt his yodel run without smiling. Modern audiophiles debate whether faint wheezes are tape hiss or the singer's lungs straining, a morbid yet fitting tribute. Rodgers died at 35, younger than most presidents yet older than Buddy or Graham, reminding us that legend obeys no arithmetic. It blooms whenever willpower meets opportunity. The cottage where he spent childhood afternoons now stands as a museum filled with railroad lanterns, harmonicas, and the battered guitar he nicknamed the Machine. Visitors leave postcards behind the glass, thanking him for proving that a broken body can still steer a runaway melody. Some drop train tickets stamped used, a promise to keep traveling where Rodgers' whistle leads across future tracks. 10 stories, 10 exits, 1 lingering echo. Country music chases danger as often as devotion. Planes, cars, syringes, bottles, deserts, and storms form a grim rhythm section that never misses its cue. Each voice we traced carried a unique melody, yet the chorus stayed the same. Touring grind, public pressure, and the human craving to dull both until something snaps. Buddy's glasses, Patsy's watch, Hank's Cadillac, Keith's tumbler, Graham's scorch mark, Rodgers' cot, relics that prove art often flowers where risk hovers. The business loves heroic debuts, but it sells sudden finales even faster, leaving fans to wonder whether admiration can coexist with sorrow. A healthier tribute is to mind their warnings, Buddy's need for rest, Carson's family dream, Whitley's terror of quiet, Parsons' plea for open sky. Icons were mortals with errands and anxieties. When their records spin after this video ends, listen for those ordinary hopes hiding between verses. Then look at today's stars sprinting through the same airports and back roads. A careless tweet can distract a pilot. An extra shot can blur a steering wheel. One harsh review can push a songwriter toward the wrong pill. If remembering these ghosts persuades even one musician to pause before the bend, the stories earn their keep. And if they nudge you to ease off your own accelerator, literal or emotional, the music hasn't just endured, it has rescued someone. Maybe you. Legacies are not written only in granite or museum plaques. They survive in late-night truck stop jukeboxes, bedroom Spotify playlists, and shaky covers at county fairs. Every time a roomful of strangers joins the chorus of "Crazy," or a teenager discovers Lovesick Blues on a battered compilation, a fragile thread tightens between past and present. Those threads ask for stewardship. Carry them carefully and the circle may finally stay unbroken together.